Hi everyone, alright, so I'm going to show you how to set up the scene with all of this lighting and these clouds that you see over here. Now these I consider to be lazy clouds. They're not going to look as good as VDBs because VDBs capture a lot more lighting information. But what's really cool about setting up clouds like this, if I go to my Octane Daylight and I start rotating this, you'll see that I can change my overall lighting in the scene, and all of the lighting and color information is also being cast against these lazy clouds. Now there's definitely limitations, which means that we need to render this from one particular angle, and you'll see what I mean as soon as I snap out of my camera view over here. Let me just zoom out a little bit. These clouds are actually the result of layering different planes. Now we can control the overall complexity of our scene by adding more planes in our scene as well, but it's simply just setting up planes, and I'm going to be showing you how to prepare these clouds and get it into the 3D workspace so that you've got some quick and easy 3D clouds that you can move around and manipulate. VDBs are really awesome. They look a lot better, but VDBs tend to be quite slow. So this is just a really lazy and quick alternative to get some 3D clouds in your scene. So we'll be creating this exact same scene that you see over here. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so before we head into Cinema 4D, I want to show you guys how to prepare these cloud images in case you plan on taking your own images or you're downloading images online of clouds. So I've taken a picture of some clouds over here and I've included this in the resources folder. So just open up the resources folder and just drag and drop this into Photoshop, and I'm going to be showing you how to prepare these clouds. Alright, so I'm going to double click on here to unlock my background layer. I'm going to go to Images, Adjustments, and Desaturate, and I'm making this black and white so that this image can take full advantage of all of the lighting that's going to be casted onto this image within the 3D program. Now I'm going to go to Channels, select the red channel, and just click and drag that onto this icon over here, and it's going to duplicate it. I'm going to go to Images, Adjustments, and Levels, and I'm going to pump this up so that it creates a really harsh separation between these two values over here. And just bring this up a little bit as well. And there we go. Now I'm going to hold on Control and left click on here, and it's automatically going to create a selection. Then I'm going to select RGB, go back to layers, and create a layer mask. So you'll see right now if I create a shape layer behind these clouds, that these clouds have actually been masked out. So if I change this color over here, you can see whatever color I make it, we've always got those clouds on top of this layer, so they've effectively been masked out. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to select my layer mask, I want to select a brush, and I want to make sure this color is black. Right, so whenever I paint with black, it's basically going to erase parts of the clouds, and if I switch that to white, it's going to bring back some of those clouds. And I'm doing that on a layer mask so that we can basically complete that process non-destructively. So I'm going to switch back to black. Now you can use a soft round brush over here. I'm using the default brushes that come with Photoshop, or you can scroll down and maybe use one of the cloud brushes. So I'm just going to use a regular soft round brush, and I want to make sure that my clouds are not touching these edges, because in the 3D program we are also going to see very sharp edges like this that are going to be visible on our clouds, and that's exactly what we don't want. So we essentially creating what's supposed to be like a vignette effect for our clouds, and I'm just using just a regular soft round brush to make sure these clouds are not right up against the edges over here. Okay, so I'm just erasing it like this. Now if you're using a cloud brush, it might make the process of erasing certain parts of these clouds look a little bit more natural, but for the purpose of this tutorial I'm just going to use just a regular soft round brush. Okay, so this is what you want. You can see that none of these clouds are right up against the edges, which is perfect. Okay, so before I save this out, I'm going to go back to Levels and just pump up the slide a little bit more, because I want to get rid of some of these lighter gray areas over there. And this should be good to go. So once your image looks like this, we are ready to save this out. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. I'm going to save this out as a PNG, and I'm going to go to my resources folder. Now I already saved out a version, but I'm going to just save over this. So I'm just saving it as Clouds Tutorial and click on OK, and we are ready to head over to Cinema 4D. I'm going to go to File, Merge, and just go ahead and import that hot air balloon that's included in the resources folder. It's a free object that I found online. I'm going to click on Open. Over here, I want my Phong angle on 180 and my splitting on combined. I'm going to click on OK. And these default materials that get imported, I'm selecting all of them, deleting them, and then here is our hot air balloon. I'm just going to rotate this. Now, obviously, you can use whatever object you want, but I just found it fitting to use a hot air balloon within the scene. Okay, then I'm going to go to Create, Shader, Cinema 4D, Octane material, and just drag and drop it onto the entire balloon for now, just so we have a material on our balloon. I'm changing my material type to glossy as well. Going to diffuse, just make this a little bit darker, go to roughness and pump up this value a little bit. Okay, so we got our hot air balloon in the scene, and now it's time to bring in those clouds. So as I showed you in the beginning, those clouds are basically an illusion, right? And they are applied onto planes. So let's go ahead and create a plane. Let's scale this plane up, rotate it like this. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Now I'm just going to create my first plane behind my hot air balloon and just put it in place. Now let's create the material for the plane. I'm going to go to Create, Shader, Octane material, double click on that, make this glossy, and let's open up the node editor. So I'm going to bring in two image textures, connect one to the opacity, the other one to the diffuse, and I want to bring in a transform and connect the transform to the diffuse and the transform to the opacity's diffuse as well. So this is going to allow me to adjust both of these values at once whenever I'm scaling the clouds in my scene. So I'm going to go to the diffuse over here, go to these three dots, and let's bring in the clouds tutorial image. And I'm going to do the exact same thing on the opacity, bring in the clouds tutorial image. Then on the opacity, so that we can prevent any weird tiling issues later, because if I scale this down, scale it down right now, it's basically going to duplicate this cloud multiple times. So to fix that, just go to border mode and put it on black. So it's only going to be referencing the black in the image, and it's going to isolate this cloud on its own. So whenever I scale this up or down, it's not going to create any weird tiling where it'll duplicate these clouds. Now drag and drop that onto the plane, and we are good to go. I'm going to go ahead and just close this. Let's open up our live viewer. Let's send this over to the live viewer. So you can already see some clouds present in our scene, but to visualize this a lot better, let's go to Objects, Lights, and Octane Daylight. So the Octane Daylight is going to add some realistic lighting into your scene, and now you can see a faint indication of some clouds in our 3D workspace. To control the overall intensity of these clouds, we want to double click on this material. Let's go to Opacity, go into this image, and we basically control the intensity with the gamma slider. So if I bring this down a lot more, it's going to make these clouds a lot more visible. And if I pump it up, it's going to obviously create a lot more transparency. So that is a great way to control the overall transparency of your clouds depending on where you're placing them in your scene. So I'm going to bring this down just a little bit, just so our clouds are a lot more visible in our scene. Now if I select that plane and we maybe enlarge it, rotate it a little bit. Actually, let's see. We need to find a really good angle because this works best from one particular angle within your scene. That is the only limitation, because remember, these are planes. These are not actual VDBs or volumetric clouds in your scene. We are just using planes to create the illusion. But you can already see we've got the sunset in the background, and even if I go ahead right now back to opacity and bring up our gamma value, you can see we're controlling, like it almost seems like light is passing through this plane, even though there's no real light that's passing through it. It's all an illusion, but it's a great way of creating clouds within your 3D scene. Okay, so there we go, and that is just with one single plane being present. Okay, so let's add some more layering to our scene, but let's say I'm actually happy with this particular angle right now. Okay, because I got the sunset in the background. Right, I'm trying to follow almost a rule of thirds framing with my shot. But this probably won't be final, but let's say I'm happy with it. I'm going to create a Octane Camera. Okay, in my Octane Camera, my settings over here, I'm going to go to Camera Imager, enable that. I'm going to put my response on linear. Let's go into our camera, just bump up some of the gamma over here, a little bit of the exposure, and I'm going to bring up my highlight compression. So this prevents any blown out highlights being present in your image. I'm going to add a little bit of vignette, go to my post processing, enable that, and bring up, just add a little bit of bloom into my scene as well. Okay, so now I can actually move out of the camera because I know that's locked in place. I've got it at this particular angle. Let me go out of the camera and I can start duplicating my planes, and then I can always just snap back into the camera to see how it looks. Okay, so let's actually snap back into the camera. Let's select this plane. If I hold on Control and just click and drag on this green arrow, it's going to duplicate that plane and move it back. Now I can start adding some more detail with these clouds in my scene. Right, I can maybe scale it down. And this is where creative freedom and creative control is completely up to you. You need to decide how you want these clouds to be placed, but I'm just showing you how I'm layering these planes. So I'm going to snap out of the camera. Let's see exactly where that plane has been placed. So I put this one behind these clouds. Let me bring some clouds into the foreground as well. Let me snap back into my front camera angle. So having some of these clouds in front of the plane, in front of the hot air balloon is definitely going to add some more realism as well, because you know there's not just clouds that are present behind the balloon, it is floating through these clouds. So I want there to be this illusion of clouds being present in front of the hot air balloon as well. But now let's duplicate this material, Control C, Control V, and I'm going to drag and drop it on this plane. Make sure I'm selecting this material because this is still the first one, and I'm deleting it. And I'm going to open up this material, and by opacity, let's maybe play around with some of the gamma. Right, so maybe we want these clouds in the foreground to be quite faint. And there we go. Right, so you can see we've added some more detail, some more clouds in the back, and some more clouds in the foreground as well. Okay, if you see this information on the bottom, just right click. I'm going to go to toggle info just so I can see my entire scene a lot better. Now I'm going to click on this gear icon, and I'm going to change my GI mode to GI diffuse. So the reason why I'm doing that is you'll notice that whenever light is being casted on the clouds, if it's on GI ambient occlusion, it doesn't take that information into consideration, but putting it on GI diffuse will make a little bit of a difference with the color on the clouds. So if I start playing around with our Octane daylight, let's click on the sun icon. Let's maybe put our power on 1.4. Right, just bump up some of the colors in our scene. And over here I can see here's my gizmo for the Octane daylight. I'm just going to click on this and bring it up a bit. Okay, so let's rotate this. Now this is where it's really cool to have these clouds in your scene. And it's also the reason why I changed it to GI diffuse. So you can see the clouds, even though they are planes, they are actually capturing some of the lighting information from our scene. Alright, so maybe I want, let's see, it really depends on where I want where I want the sun to be present. I did like the overall sunset mood that it was creating, but yeah, this is where you have fun, this is where you have control. So now you can see these clouds are completely blue. We're not getting that orange sunset color being cast on the clouds. Right, remember it's an illusion, guys. Light is definitely not passing through these clouds because it's simply just a plane, but it's still a pretty cool way to get some lighting in your scene and have those clouds present as well. Right, so if we go back to our first material over here, because we made that image black and white, this means that we can actually change the color of these clouds. So if I wanted my clouds to be red and I just bring down this mix value, you can see I can actually start adding some tints of red into the clouds. So if I wanted maybe my clouds to match some of the lighting a little bit more accurate in the scene, this is also a great way to adjust some of the colors of the actual clouds. And maybe I can bring that down a little bit more. But it's a cool way of adding some more color into your scene. So you can make them blue. Now this is obviously becoming really stylized. not really that realistic right now, but I just wanted to show you that you can change the color of the clouds as well. Okay, so I'm just going to rotate my sun a little bit more like this. Let's see. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to show you, why I changed that to GI diffuse. Pay attention to the color of the clouds over here. We know the sun is casting this almost orange glow onto our hot air balloon, and we can see some of the color being cast on those clouds. But if this was on GI ambient occlusion, take notice of the clouds. They're not really getting that color information. So by putting that on GI diffuse, it's actually receiving some of that color information on the clouds themselves. Right, so another way to add some more vibrant color into the scene, if I go to my Octane Daylight and increase the sky turbidity slider, you'll see that it starts adding a lot more stronger highlights and color into our scene. Then I just need to go back to the camera over here, maybe adjust some of the gamma value. Let's see, maybe bring down some of the exposure. Right, trying to balance out these sliders. But you can see now we've got just a stronger highlight in this region. There's some purple in our clouds as well. And if I go back to our material, right, let's go back to the diffuse. Let's maybe make this white. If I go to the index and start making our material a lot shinier, it's actually going to capture some more color information as well. You'll see if I bring that down to 1, pay attention to the color of the clouds right now. But if I pump that value up, it starts capturing some more blue highlights and just some more blue color information on the clouds as well. So I'm going to do that for both of them. And I'm going to also add a little bit of roughness, because sometimes we actually might see a reflection of our hot air balloon on the clouds, which is fine, but that reflection is going to look very, very cartoony and just really like a really hard reflection. And another way to fix that as well, if you went to the sky and maybe increase the sun size, you could soften the shadow of any reflections of the hot air balloon against the plane. Okay, so I'm going to create the material for the hot air balloon. I'm going to select this, duplicate it, Control-C, Control-V, go to diffuse, go to image texture, go into the image texture, and here is the hot air balloon material. There's also a normal map for the hot air balloon. This one here at the bottom. And to find out, let me just go out of the camera, to find out how to select that hot air balloon, it's got selection sets. So this is the hot air balloon, and I'll just drag and drop that onto the hot air balloon. Snap back to our camera. There we go. Now we've got some color on the hot air balloon. I can also invert this to change those colors if I want to do that. Okay, so you can either keep the hot air balloon black, or whatever object you use, and it's completely up to you. The main aim of this tutorial is to show you how to get these clouds into your 3D workspace and how to work with the Octane Daylight. Right, so here's another way to alter the look of these clouds. If you think the clouds are a little bit too dark, you can always open up this material and change this material type to specular, and that's just going to make these clouds a lot lighter in your scene. And maybe you can go to the opacity and just control how much of those clouds you want to be visible. You can see specular really brightens up the overall look of these clouds. And again, remember to play around with the layering. The layering is so important because it can completely change the overall look of the image. So now we've got some clouds in our scene. They're quite subtle. We've still got this strong glare from the sun that's being cast on the clouds. They're capturing that color and light information, and it's on our hot air balloon as well. So just an easy way of adding some clouds into your 3D scene. So it's technically 2D images in a 3D workspace. So they're not really 3D clouds, but they are 3D clouds, if you understand what I'm saying. Okay. One last tip. You notice with this hot air balloon, without this octane light visible over here, right, this area is like really black. So I basically just created an octane light, area light. Okay. You can see it adds some more color information over there, some more lighting information. But I basically positioned it over here so that the light is pointing upwards, and on the actual light visibility, I disabled camera visibility and decreased some of the power so that it's not too strong. Right, so it's just a little bit of a balance. And then in my scene over here, I added some more planes. You can see I layered some more planes in the scene. So there's one in the front, the back, and then there's a really big one in the back as well. Right, just creating some more layering. So just have fun with this experiment and see what you can come up with. So this result is like really cloudy, so you can push this a lot further. We can see a very faint indication of the sun behind these clouds, or it's creating the illusion that the sun is actually behind these clouds. So just play around with this and see how far you can actually push it. Alright, so experiment, have fun with this method. Try your best to make it look believable or convincing, because like I said, there is limitations to this method. And remember, you can always just go back to your main material, go to your node editor and swap this out for something else. In the resources folder, there is 2 other clouds, free cloud images that I found online with the alpha that's been prepared as well. So maybe load some of these in, experiment with them and see what type of results you can actually get. I know there's some of these clouds in my scene here. So let me just drag and drop this onto this plane. Alright, let's go back in there. Let's see what's going on. You can see maybe these clouds will look better from another angle with the lighting. So maybe I have to play around with my lighting over here until I get them to look a little bit more visible. So you just need to experiment. So yeah, maybe they look better when they're smaller under the transform. So these ones are quite puffy, right? It's like a puffy cloud. And maybe under diffuse, let me bring this all the way back up, because this actually has some color information on it. Right. And let me just turn off invert over there. And these ones have some color information on them, as you can see. So just simply just playing around with these different cloud images until you get something that looks convincing. You can see, because it's a plane, it is capturing light information. Pretty strange at certain times. And if you remember, if you have like a plane that's right behind your hot air balloon like this, you can control that shadow just by going to sun and increasing the sun size, so it'll soften the shadow for you. So just showing you by loading in different clouds, and then it's just up to you how you layer these planes and how you get that overall end result that you're looking for. Okay, so that's the end of this tutorial. If you're also smart with how you arrange your planes, you could maybe even create ground fog in your scene. So experiment, see what you can come up with. Obviously with your images, you maybe want to increase your samples here so you get a nice clear image. Remember, your GI mode must be on GI diffuse. And then you can even just save this preview out as a PNG and maybe take this over to Photoshop and start manipulating some of the colors, doing some post work in Photoshop. It's completely up to you. But the whole aim of this tutorial was to show you a really quick and easy and lazy way to get clouds into a 3D workspace. It's not 100% ideal, or it doesn't look 100% convincing, but it's still a pretty decent method for getting clouds in your scene. So if you feel like it works really good in your workflow, then that's awesome. Go ahead, give it a try, keep using it, or use it as a base for your digital paintings or your concept artwork. Alright, so as always, stay tuned for some more videos and tutorials on this channel. I truly appreciate the support, and goodbye.